What'd you do today?
Guess what I did today, dude? I'm about to leave to work, and this happens to me pretty frequently. And I go in my garage, and there's a hummingbird just smashing around in my garage. My garage doors are way lower than my garage ceiling. My garage ceiling's like really high. Yeah. My doors, like, they go up like the standard 8-10 feet or whatever that is, right? And so hummingbirds will come in there and they can't get out. And I used to try and get them out for hours, like try and like with a broom and try and herd them out. But it was really hard because they'd have to descend, and hummingbirds, they're not great descenders.
Yeah.
They're great at going up. They're not great at going
Sure.
down, right? So I had this new idea where I get this like extendable window washer thing, and they land on it, and it still takes like 20 to 30 minutes to get them comfortable enough with being perched on this thing. Otherwise, they like fly up, run into the window in my garage, and just start smacking it again. But I've been getting good at getting them out because I used to just sit there and like fight them for a little bit. I'm like, whatever, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
And then you come back later and just see a dead hummingbird, and nobody wants to see that.
Dude, you are a big RFK guy because I know he drove like 5 hours to cut a whale's head off.
Yeah. No, me and him we're cut from the same cloth.
Oh my gosh. That's sad though. Hummingbirds.
It feels good though when you do something.
Who doesn't love a hummingbird?
When you do something like that, because I can just be a jerk for the rest of the day. It's like, no, I did my good turn daily.
Yeah.
And now it's like, dude, I'm honking at people on the way to, like, if they're like a second behind, I'm honking at them.
Yeah, you're usually pretty pissed off coming into work.
Yeah, I'm at Maverick, and ladies
hummingbirds, they have a way of calming you down.
Trying to make conversation with me. And I'm like, are you going to ring me up or what?
You're not a small talk guy. That's what makes this podcast so incredible.
Yeah.
The fact that we get you to even talk about things. Speaking of just animals and garages and getting into things, I was going to get into this later, but international news, some crazy things happen over in Germany.
Okay.
So there's all these.
Is there a new chancellor?
No, don't you yet. No. There's all these raccoons. So raccoons aren't native to Germany. I guess they were introduced like around World War II time. That's what they say. It was like a Nazi thing, but really they were American raccoons. They bring 2 of them. And now they're taking over. The problem is they love beer. So all these drunk raccoons are like getting into people's houses, like destroying things. They love beer and food. I mean, they're just classic. They're fitting in with the German culture.
Cartoon raccoons over there. You don't just...
but they are this is the most German raccoon thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. I mean, this is tough because...
They're blaming it on us.
You don't want to piss the Germans off like this, right? Because pretty soon they're going to they go full Holocaust, all those coups.
I actually think the Germans have done a complete 180, dude. They're like the most fun, awesome people. They're always partying, dude. You hear like anytime you hear a German accent anymore, it's always like this guy's a partier. Like a guy speaking English with a German accent.
But don't you think a full 180 would be from fascism to communism? And I also think they've done that, by the way. But
yeah, that's probably true. But to the raccoons, a German spokesperson said that raccoon was obviously intoxicated before adding that a breathalyzer test on the animal was not carried out. But they know a drunk raccoon when they see one.
Dude.
So in less than like a century, these species have made Germany its home.
Yeah, I was at the ranch once in California. Our grandparents had a ranch out there, and they had like this little guest cottage thing. I remember walking outside to throw something away and coming back in. Yeah. And there's a raccoon just staring me down in front of like me in the door. And I had to kind of like go around him to get to this door. It was an unpleasant situation.
It's horrifying.
But a raccoon actually, one of my good buddies, his in-laws have a cabin, and a raccoon was inside, and they shot it with a .22, but just like kind of hit it in the gut, and it proceeded to run around the house for like days, just bleeding out everywhere.
It was probably drunk.
Yeah, it was, for sure.
That's kind of sad.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
They didn't want to finish the job?
Well, I think they had a tough time like locating it after that, Because initially the raccoons, they get, if they're tipsy, they get a little bravos, but then they run away.
Oh, man. We got really sidetracked on that, but I thought it was a hilarious little story.
Yeah.
Hey, do you trust people like nowadays? All like random people I haven't sent an email to for a while, but hey, what's your email address? And they send you back a Hotmail account.
Oh man, that's a bad sign.
And people like the people that send you a Hotmail account, like how serious can you take these people?
No, I know. I just it's either you do have people though that really cherish that time period. Like maybe they were just slaying it on MSN Messenger and just landing chicks left and right.
I actually don't agree. I actually
they're worried that if they deactivate their Hotmail account, they're like that. Well, those doors are finally going to be closed.
They
Some
want
of those chicks on there.
yeah, they want it as like a second option in
It's like,
case
yeah, if they ever
I
go
can
look
always
me
go
up.
back. Yeah. Yeah, I don't trust these people.
What was your
though.
Hotmail account?
Snatchhelm@hotmail.com.
That's pretty good. Mine was suckbad at hotmail.com.
I couldn't even get helm. I'm telling you, you can't send out these Hotmail accounts anymore. But like people are married to their 14-year-old self coming up with a email account.
Yeah.
At some point, you gotta switch to that Gmail. Do you remember when people? I forget what it was like some news thing where they were trying to explain what the internet was.
Well, Allison should know.
What is internet anyway?
Internet is that
massive computer network. The one that's becoming really big now.
What do you mean? That's big. How does one? What do you write to it like mail?
No, a lot of people use it and communicate. I guess they can communicate with NBC writers and producers. Allison, can you explain what internet is?
No, she can't say anything in 10 seconds or less.
Oh, Allison will be in the studio shortly.
What does
it mean?
It's a giant computer network made up of started from.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell us what this was.
It's like a computer billboard.
It's not in it. It's a computer billboard, but it's
Right.
nationwide, and it's several universities and everything all joined together. And
Right.
And others can access it.
Right.
And it's getting bigger and bigger all the time.
It came in really handy during the quake. A lot of people, that's how they were communicating out to tell family and loved ones they were okay because all the phone lines were down.
I was telling Katie, and I've been
But you don't need that. You don't need a phone line to operate internet.
No.
It's kind of a tough thing to explain.
Well, it just depends on who my audience is, right? If I'm hanging out with my nerds, right, I would be like, hey, imagine a hive mind central being, right? And this being can go across different dimensions and still communicate with its creatures. But if I was talking to like somebody else,
that sounds more like a weird cult.
Yeah. No, it's not a cult. Okay. It's more, if you think of the greatest, like the most threatening creatures to human beings, it would for sure be like a hive mind. Like can you imagine if ants were as the size of humans and they were as coordinated as they are, right? And all being controlled by like.
I gotcha. Yeah. I don't really want to go down that route because I believe what you're saying. And I know you're passionate.
It just seemed like we're just trivializing it as a cult.
Very passionate ant farmer.
I'll just say we got to be careful.
Yeah, but the internet, like, how would you explain it to somebody that's dumb? That's never heard of the internet before. I had always heard growing up, like, it was like the army had created this network.
Yeah.
To connect people.
Yeah.
That was all I understood from it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember email being like, when it was so new, it was like so exciting. And / you always took things like this. It was a new invention, so you didn't take it as very consequential. But one of our buddies named Nick, he's like, hey, set me up an email address. I need an email address. So I set one up, and it was very homoerotic, the email address that I chose for him, right? And we go to this big wakeboarding event, and the organizers of the event after like, hey, we need everyone's email so that we can send you out all our event updates. And so he goes through it. All of us are given the emails, and then my buddy had to use his very.
I know you never we didn't know it was gonna be so carry it the rest of our lives when you first set up your email. That. So you have to deal with the consequences.
No, for sure.
Speaking of which, so fantasy football for us is coming up, and every year we update the fantasy football belt. Don't think we're losers, but we do this.
Yeah.
And everyone has some really unique names, but I have to take it into this trophy guy every year and be like, yeah, this is a champion, horny for W's, champion.
What again?
Yep. And he's kind of this straight-laced guy, and I know he's just thinking we're the weirdest freaking people.
Yeah.
So it's always a little embarrassing.
We should get him in the league. I bet you he's into some really freaky names.
For sure. It's those people.
Yeah. He's going to have something a little sick,
he's seen some things.
The fantasy name that hasn't caught on in our league, but I was big a few years ago. My balls, Zach Ertz.
Yeah. They're so strapped to 2 or 3 years for some of these players. That's why I've always kept mine consistent.
Yeah. I know. I struggle in these departments because, it's hard for me to I take fantasy football so serious that I don't have any brain power left for, just naming my
Why
team.
do we take it so seriously?
I don't know. It means like so much.
I think because you're playing against your peers that you like are always competitive with your peers, your friends, and you want to kill them. I hate 90% of the people in our league. But I like that they're in the league because it brings the best out of me.
Yeah, good, because only 10% listen to the pod, so hopefully you match up.
I want them
10%.
to hear this, dude, because we have a draft tomorrow. We have this big sweet draft. We have pizza and an auction draft. It's a good time.
It's a great time. Yeah, it's a big deal. I think for the older you get, the harder it is to, maintain yourself relevant socially. So you put together things like this to, like, hey, I'm still cool. I'm still a big deal.
Yeah, but this league has been going on for over 10 years, so it's a long time.
Dude, I had a funny pod story that happened to me the other day. I'm meeting some new neighbors that are building their house in our neighborhood, and I'm kind of like getting to know them, and it turns out one of them grew up around here, so I'm like, he was your age, and so I'm like, oh, did you know my brother Zach Helm? He's like, Zach Helm from the podcast, Zach Helm.
Oh my gosh! If you only know us from this podcast, you are a loser.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah. This kid went to like a different high school. He's like, oh, dude, he's like, yeah. I don't know Zach, but I listened to the pod.
Thank you.
He's like, dude. He's like, have you ever been able to be on the pod? He says this to me, and I'm like,
what do you mean?
He's like, I've never heard you on it. And I'm like, this guy is selectively, like, there's only a few episodes that I haven't been in.
That's like what he's doing right now. It's like when you go to prison and he finds the biggest guy in the yard, you go up and punch him. He's moving into a new neighborhood.
He knows.
So he wants to be like, you know what? I'm not gonna let this kid have anything over the top of me.
Yeah, he did. He was calling me Greg a lot too.
I
had to correct him several times. Like, yo, it's Alex.
Thanks, Greg. Hope to see you on the podcast. Oh man, he sounds like a great neighbor.
Yeah. We're excited. So, we've talked about this, I think, on the pod, but do you know about the Boeing spaceship that went up?
I want an update on those peeps.
So if the spaceship is like, hey, we're going to self-destruct, but it's a super slow timer, right? Like, you're not going to have any air or anything, but it's like a super slow timer. So they have time enough to get them evacuated onto the International Space Station, where like the U.S. and Russia and whoever else has their own like quarters up there. And so they're up there, but they're like, hey, it's not going to be until like 2025 when Elon can send a spaceship up to pick him up. Boeing can. Like, Boeing's like a rival of SpaceX, but Elon's going to go pick him up. But so they're like, hey, these people won't be able to come home. They were supposed to have a 2-week trip.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe even it was like a week.
Like 5 days. Yeah.
And now they're stuck up there till 2025. And somebody tweeted this, but it looked like it was like, he's like, we have he's like, we as a species have the opportunity to buy 8 billion monkey costumes and pull the greatest break in the history of man.
Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, that'd be a missed opportunity right there.
It would be, dude. Let's start selling. Everyone just needs to start selling. We need to start buying.
Come back in monkey costumes. Oh my gosh, that's too good. I love hearing that. Oh man, did you have any? Remember, as kids watching movies, did anything like scar you? Was there a movie that like you still are affected by?
Oh yeah, Rufio getting stabbed like scarred me.
In what movie?
In Hook. Yeah. When Rufio gets stabbed, it's like
that's sad. That's
a sad moment. It's like even like the sword, like they don't. I mean, maybe I made this up, but it felt like you saw the sword like move through his body. Like
that guy. I never saw him in any other, but he acted his head off in that movie.
Yeah, he did. I think he
should have won an Oscar for that.
I know. He was, dude. He could crow.
He could
crow.
He could crow. The crowing, I always felt a little uncomfortable in that movie. I tried to show my kids Hook.
Yeah.
The crowing didn't age well.
Yeah, to shut it off.
It just didn't age well.
Yeah, it's a little racist.
But the Rufio thing's pretty cool.
Yeah. Do you remember the like imaginary feast they had? I'm like, dude, I remember
I was so hungry.
Like, oh, I wanted to freaking eat that. It was just like this weird like.
Well, we always were a little hungry. We never fed ourselves, so we had to use our imagination that way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Mine for sure is freaking Pennywise, man.
Yeah.
And it's so funny, like watching it growing up. I heard about it. Like our sisters went to a sleepover and they came back and that's all they talked about was this It movie with Pennywise, this clown. But it's funny is like I'm still freaked out about this clown. It's still a freaky movie, and obviously the whole world are making sequels and stuff.
Yeah.
But my kids, it's like they've never even seen the movie.
they
But
talk
Rose, my 6-year-old, talks about Pennywise every day. She's like, Dad, but Pennywise. It's all about Pennywise. I'm like, how do you know so much about Pennywise?
He's like
he's back.
Yeah, he is back, and we've got to stop him. But we knew he would
But
come
we're
back.
adults now.
I know, but we knew he'd come back.
You kind of look like the guy that, the funny guy
That kills
as a
himself?
kid that ends up killing himself in the bathtub in the movie.
You don't want to look like that guy as you grow up. Like I did everything I could to avoid looking like that guy, but it was like just a magnet. Like
if you don't know the
become
reference, the reference, the guy is very hairy though. You do not have the chest hair that
No.
this guy had.
No,
But yeah, Pennywise, man, he's not only affected my childhood, but he's affecting my kids, and they haven't even seen the movie. So at this point, I'm just going to show them the movie.
I think you need to. I'd love like to get my kids into scary movies, but like that feels so far away from whenever I'd be able to sit down and watch a scary movie with my kids. It's like at this age, like we were watching a lot of them.
We'd seen it, yeah. We were big into like, I mean, I don't think my dad showed us on purpose, but everything my dad did, we wanted to watch. You know, he drank Pepsi, we wanted his Pepsi.
Yeah.
He watched, Predator. I mean, Predator is still one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
But I'm showing my kids are really into Billy Madison right now. Super into it. And like, I was like, yeah, I guess you could watch it, but I have to I know it so well I can monitor it.
Yeah.
They're obsessed with Billy Madison. Oh, that penguin scene at the beginning, dude. Even Rocky is talking like Billy. Like,
He's
he's doing all that
no,
stuff.
dude.
I'm like, oh no, it's happening. So that's how I distracted him from Pennywise.
Do you remember the kids growing up though that they just became Adam Sandler? It's like, hey, they couldn't really find a niche that they could own, and so it's like, hey, I can do this guy. Like I can be this guy, and you immediately vaulted yourself to the top of whatever social circle you were running in.
Yeah, for sure. If you had all those, do you think
you could say shabby doobie with like a
Shabba-doo.
straight
no,
face?
dude, and kids ate it up.
They loved it. Yeah.
Adam Sandler versus Will Ferrell. Who do you think's had a better, look at their whole career up to today. Who do you think's more iconic?
All that stuff. I'm going to say Will Ferrell only because Will Ferrell has had some awesome just hits on his own. Maybe not as many like solos, but his cameos in so many other shows have lifted it up, right? His supporting actor or cameos in other shows have made other shows so good. Even things like the Lego Movie, right? I love him in everything.
Everything he does is pretty
But
solid.
Adam Sandler is way funny, and Adam Sandler has a lot of people that cameo into his stuff. He
has his
just
own
never
little-
cameos back. To
they
that.
don't cross over those worlds. Even though I would say altogether, Adam Sandler's had a better career. Because right now, Netflix is just writing him checks, and they are not going to do that with Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell's had a lot of... No, Will Ferrell's had a lot of, he went through that era with, Step Brothers and all those movies where he was just Anchorman clicking like crazy. Then he had some, bad ones. His bad ones are, you can't even watch. Adam Sandler's bad ones still get watched.
You're saying grown-ups. You're like, yeah, I got to watch
100%.
grown-ups.
I guarantee Netflix cuts, double the amount for Adam Sandler movies versus a Will Ferrell movie.
Really?
Oh, 100%. Even though I think Will Ferrell's funnier, but
Who do you think's worth more?
Adam Sandler. I guarantee it.
Can we look that up on the pod?
Look it up right now.
Okay.
Adam Sandler, because, I would say that. But they both had, it's funny because Adam Sandler had, at the beginning, he was really hot. Then he faded off, and now he's kind of back doing movies. And Adam Sandler's acting chops they're both good actors, but Adam Sandler can, uncut gems. The guy has some range. And Will Ferrell has a little bit of range, you saw that in, Stranger Than Fiction, But what do you see?
Well, it says that Will Ferrell's worth $160 million and Adam Sandler's worth $420 million.
Yeah, how can we never believe what I say?
Well, it just kind of surprises me because you think of some of these.
What's Will Ferrell been in as
I
a
feel
star
like even
lately?
Elf, the amount of airtime Elf gets.
No,
because
I get that. That was
few
huge.
movies.
That was 20 years ago. I'm talking lately. Adam Sandler puts out a movie on Netflix and it's instant money.
Yeah.
But Will Ferrell, you don't see him very often.
That's just an interesting take, but I I feel like I need to, like, I'm so
I'm not saying I
broadsided by
like
this.
I'm not saying I like Adam
blindsided
Sandler
by this that
better.
I don't feel like I have correct arguments because
I think
never
they're both-
I never put both in the
Yeah.
same class. I think
Yeah.
before.
I think they're well. It's funny because they both started SNL. They both branched off to do movies. Like they've had similar paths.
Sure, but I think that I mean I can watch Billy Madison, I guess, with everyone, but Will Ferrell's comedy I feel like aged 100 times better than Adam Sandler's like. Comedy.
I don't know. This is where I think people we're old enough to get all these nostalgic things happen. Like now they're making Happy Gilmore 2. And they made Step Brothers 2. I mean, not Step, but like Anchorman 2 and stuff. And that was big, but not what like Happy Gilmore 2 is going to be. Happy
You don't
Gilmore was
think
so
so?
let's
Oh man. Okay, let's
So
make
iconic.
let's make a side bet. Let's bet $50 on which film will have grossed more. Happy Gilmore
I'll
2.
put all my money on Happy Gilmore 2.
Okay, $50 bet.
I'll make it $500.
Well, I know, but I don't. I don't
Alex.
have. This is your realm. It's not mine. But I think Anchorman.
But you just
2
came
will
up with that.
Outperform. Well, I want to bet.
Anchorman 2 will
I just don't know that
outperform.
I think Anchorman 2 will outperform in terms of box office success.
Let me tell you why it won't.
Go on.
Anchorman 1 and 2 came out within like 5 years of each other. Happy Gilmore came out in like 1997 or something.
Sure, but there's 1,000
This
movies like
build
that
up.
now.
I'm not like Happy Gilmore, not even close. It's so iconic. Like, so they did an open casting call. This is where like you're almost having like a Paul take here. You're so far off. They had an open casting call, like and it's like around like blocks and blocks of people that want to be in Happy Gilmore too. It's so iconic. It will have all these
Okay, let's just set that up though, because I want to just see what the box office was for Anchorman 2.
and I'm giving you a leg up because think about Anchorman 2. That's back when theaters were relevant. You had to go to the theater.
Which is why I made this bet.
Yeah.
173 million. That doesn't seem like a lot.
Anchorman 2 was a bust. It was a funny, but you can't you get so much of the same thing.
Well, I'm glad we didn't shake on
I'm not saying this. I'm not saying Happy Gilmore 2 is going to be a better movie than Anchorman 2. I'm saying it'll be more successful because more people want to see it. They're in more need of it.
So
It's
you
in
think,
demand.
Will it be better or worse than Dumb and Dumber 2?
I think it'll be better.
Because that was unwatchable. You remember that, right?
But, like,
Unwatchable.
It's
They
just,
spelled 2TO.
what about one more debate here?
Okay.
John Cena or Dwayne Johnson as an actor?
Dwayne Johnson.
Okay, like I'm talking. Do you think
John Cena
better?
is like a typical in that scene where he's just there's not a lot of like Dwayne Johnson. I think is a better actor. I think he's like more talented. He's got like a natural. I feel like he's got a way better natural comedy to him. I saw John Cena in like a couple shows where he's way funny, right?
Yeah.
But it's not. It's like the writing is really good. His delivery's fine and it works, right?
Yeah.
Like The Rock is like. He's way better.
Yeah.
Plus he's like for me, you watch a show like Moana and you're very impressed.
He killed it in that.
He was so
yeah.
good in
John
that?
Cena's not doing that.
No
John
way.
Cena is a plug and play comedy guy right
Yeah.
now. Though. They're like throwing him in small parts, and he has some range to his comedic delivery.
Yeah.
And The Rock does too.
I
but,
think if I was like 7 foot tall and 200 pounds heavier and strong like John Cena, I think you could throw me into those roles and I
Yeah.
could deliver like him. I don't think you could throw me in to that Maui role and I could come close to
good point.
pulling that off, you know.
That's a good point. There you go. Now you're making some good points.
Speaking of Moana, though, did you hear about this Disney lawsuit recently?
No.
This is like a weird thing, right? That the anti-wokers are up in arms because they like have declared war against Disney, right? But this couple is eating at a Disney themed restaurant, and if you've been to Disneyland and been to like one of their themed restaurants or a Disney park, they're awesome. Like if you go inside, like get reservations and go inside, like that Beauty and the Beast one that's in Florida, like they're super nice. The food's always really, really good. But anyways, a couple goes in there and the wife is like super allergic to a lot of things. And so she asks if the food is allergen free and like says, "Hey, I'm super allergic. I need to make sure this is allergen free." And the staff reassured her that it was.
Yeah.
She eats it and I think has to be hospitalized or maybe dies. One of the two, right? I don't have my story completely straight here,
There's
but
a big difference between alive and dead. That's
we'll say for the story, she dies.
she's dead.
Uh-huh. even though I think she did die. So the guy sues Disney because he's like, your staff told me it was allergen free. The husband sues Disney. Staff told him, and Disney is in the lawsuit, and they say they're trying to get the lawsuit dismissed because the guy signed up for a Disney Plus account, and when you sign up for a Disney Plus account, you agree not to sue Disney, that you'll take it to arbitration, which is like you just get like a lot cheaper for a person being sued.
Wow.
And you just do like so since then,
it's tough to sue Disney.
Yeah, but like, can you imagine that? You're like, your wife gets killed by Disney's like incompetence, and
but going against those attorneys, I mean, that'd be.
Well, my wife's on Disney's side. You know, like Kelsey, she's made it very clear on this pod. Like, she's like, hey, you can make fun of me all you want on that pod, but if you say one damn word
about Disney,
it's over.
Wow.
So that's why I'm trying to be like as objective as I can when I deliver this information.
That's interesting. Do you know Disney's also in trouble? Do you know why?
Why?
Because Chick-fil-A is starting a streaming service.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be like
those cows, by the way, hilarious.
And this is what they've been up to on Sundays. When they're closed, they're working on this freaking streaming service, and I don't know what they're going to be showing. It's just, family-friendly, food-oriented stuff. Like, how much food porn can you have,
Yeah.
Or I'm going to pay for a service.
Well, on the app, the Chick-fil-A's app's always sending me notifications that I need to play their games. Like, hold on a second, I thought I ordered food here. But now they have like these whole games.
I think we should start a streaming service.
They call that vertical integration.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder what they're going to call it, but get ready to sign up.
Yeah. You have to.
It's
going to be worth
Disney
a free
Plus,
chicken sandwich.
What streaming services are you signed up for right now? It's like, I'm out of control. I have YouTube TV, YouTube Premium, Hulu, Spotify. I know
These may be the ones that I paid for.
I know what you're about to say. HBO. What other ones? Prime. I have everything. I need to and I don't use them all.
But have you ever searched on your like Amazon device? You're like last night, I want to watch The Mask. Speaking of an iconic.
Wait,
iconic.
You searched out The Mask?
Yeah, because it popped up in like a
shredding
feed.
Happy Gilmore, and you're
I'm like, my kids. My kids would love to watch Mask. Like, I loved The Mask when I was like 4th or 5th grade or whenever it came out. So this is perfect time. I'll watch it with my kids. So I search it out, and it's not on any of my I have all those streaming services as well, and it's not. That is so frustrating. So I end up having to use Tubi. Have you heard of Tubi? And it was had commercials in it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, kids, sorry, you got to deal with these commercials.
They
were reasonable. It was a reasonable commercial to watch The Mask.
I recently did watch The Mask in the last 2 years, and the only good thing that came out of The Mask is Cameron Diaz.
Cameron Diaz in The Mask.
On a different
What's
level.
funny is
The Mask that show is actually, I think Jim Carrey was so big, you just gobbled up what he did, and that was so different. That show is not good.
No. Watching it as an adult, it's not great. My kids,
it's like hard to watch.
Well, it's like a cartoon. It was like Space Jam, right? Like they loved.
Yeah, but Space Jam.
We grew up like wanting to be cartoons, and that's all The Mask is a cartoon.
You want to be a cartoon?
Yeah. They also love the Loki reference that he's like this Loki.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So too many streaming services, but yeah, Chick-fil-A gets in the game. I got to jump on board because that chicken. I mean, where would you rank Chick-fil-A's sandwich compared to like a Wendy's, McDonald's sandwich?
It's really freaking good. Yeah, I speaking of chicken sandwiches, though, I've recently started getting because I get my coupons, and I've been starting to get the KFC chicken sandwich. And I talked about this on a pod, but you deleted it out. So I'm saying this again.
It'll probably get squashed again.
These people need to know you can get a $2.50 chicken sandwich from KFC, and it's so good.
Is it like the size of like a Chick-fil-A sandwich?
It's bigger.
No.
And the meat is better. It's bigger.
I believe it.
It's a bigger portion. The meat is better.
Well, when KFC starts a streaming service, I will go get the chicken sandwich.
They're not far off. I'll better work with them. I think they're owned by the same brand that owns Taco Bell. It's like, what like genius design? Who like their CEO? He must be like a freaking Willy Wonka.
Yeah,
just living the dream.
In local news, have you heard, what do you know about this whole mom talk? There's a new series coming out on Hulu about. It's like something about Utah Mormon moms, and it's so painful. This trailer, if you haven't seen it, watch it. It's about this swinger couple. It was big headlines a couple years ago, but now they're making a documentary. I don't know if you can call it a documentary.
Well, there's an interesting phenomenon that happens in Utah because a lot of I mean, the church influence is so big here, and a lot of people will grow up and they'll follow all the all the recommended steps within the church, right? I mean, they don't really have a party phase. They don't, they're just they get married young, and so that's it. And then they get married, and they may have made like the wrong choice or jumped into marriage too quick or whatever it might be, or maybe they're just a little malcontent, and then they start partying. And now, since they didn't have a party phase younger to learn like how hard they could go, they start partying like they're 16-year-olds again, right? Like busting in dad's liquor cabinet. Is that what they call them? Liquor cabinets?
Yeah.
See, I haven't hit this phase yet, but once I hit, dude, I'm gonna get into that liquor cabinet. Yeah, and so then they they go crazy, and they just make us all look so bad.
It's super embarrassing. These people are weird. I don't want to be associated with them. I won't be boxed in with these strange people, these swingers, because I'm never invited to any swingers club.
Yeah, we got some neighbors.
I don't get it. So they said
neighbors.
It was like, hey, we have there was they couldn't have sex, but it was like you could make out with these people.
Yeah.
But then they broke the rules, and she announced her divorce on like a TikTok or something. But anyways, we'll all see in the documentary. My wife, if she's listening to this right now, she's probably like, "You're telling the story so terribly. That's not what happened." Because they were like all caught up in it.
I know, but the fact that they know the story so well is part of the embarrassment.
Well, these people are weird. You always know stories that are crazy. Like no one cares about average, normal people.
Adultery and divorce is pretty normal, right? And coming into these situations. But the fact that this is a Utah influencer, it amplifies it to this extreme, and that's a side of this reverse culture that I really want to squash.
So I told you my plan. I'm gonna go undercover.
Oh, I love this.
Liz is cool with it, and I'm just gonna get all in that whole world, that whole swinging world.
Do you got a good swinger, a very open swinger group out in Farmington where you live?
I'm throwing the pineapples, the gnomes, whatever the hell you throw in your yard to attract people.
Yeah.
But mostly I don't get anybody coming over.
Well, I'm always Kelsey's going, cause I'm in the same boat, right? Hey, I'm casting the net, but Kelsey will be going outside. I'm like, what are you wearing? Right?
No, this is not
why are you wearing a sweater? Let's advertise it a little bit.
We said swinger, not swingers, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird thing, and I actually don't think they really exist. Everyone always associates Utah with swingers. We're like, oh yeah, that neighborhood. I heard about this. I'm like, I live in that neighborhood, and I just,
Well, and we take a lot of pride in ourselves. I think if people are going to get invited, it's us, right? We've got a lot. We've got a lot to give.
Maybe we're not taking the hints.
No, my neighborhood for sure. There's a very aggressive swinger scene in my neighborhood.
No way.
I'm dead serious. It's it's not aggressive enough to bring me in.
How aggressive can it be if you don't know about it?
Well, everybody knows about it, and it's
see, I actually, looking back, I think I have been introduced to this concept where you throw your keys in, but I thought it was literally you just traded cars. So
that's why you rolled up in that Porsche.
I had a sweet new car.
Yeah, that was sweet.
I didn't see Liz for a few days, but I got this new car, and that's what I thought it was when you're throwing your keys in.
Yeah.
But
it was worth it.
Super. Yeah, it's strange, but I'm gonna watch. I'll probably watch a few minutes of it.
See, I think the best way to put out fires like these,
for sure,
just ignore them and let them burn.
They just won't, though. They won't. It's too different.
And they for sure, those swingers for sure listen to this pod. They're it's going to set us back another couple of years of that invite, but
yeah,
whatever. Hey, let's skip to what really matters in this podcast. The only reason anyone's still tuning in, and that's our Costco correspondent.
All right, Z, we are back in action here at the local West Bountiful Costco. Real treat for y'all today. Something that all the cool kids like. Slides. I've become a big fan of slides over the last little while. Saw these at the Costco and had to have them. So we're gonna give them a go. And the beautiful thing is we have some rocks to test them out on. A few things about these slides. Fun fact about these is the trend really started on TikTok for these babies. So these are what all the kids are wearing. I'm obviously not a kid anymore, but I feel like a kid. So therefore we'll see if my review gives it the strength of merit. Wow. But really what you're thinking through as you're evaluating slides is comfort and style. And I will tell you, These are mid. These are mid. They're comfortable, but they're a little tight around my feet. So I'm going to say what the kids say, and we're going to define these as mid.
I don't know if I can pull those off.
When I sold cars in college, I got these slippers once, and they were like kind of slippers, but they looked like almost shoe enough to where I'm like, I think I can pull these off. It's like
Yeah.
a nice. And we had to dress up shirt and tie. I'm like, I think I can pull these off. And literally day one, like my boss comes, he's like, why in the crap are you wearing slippers?
You wore slippers to sell
work.
cars?
Yeah. I'm like, oh man, I thought these.
I'm
were more
usually on your
camouflage than
side,
these
but
are.
on this time is this what you're doing when you worked at Costco too? Like just doing stupid things? And
I like to challenge convention, right? If there's anything I'm not willing to do, it's to just comply.
Is that one of those things where they told you that and you're like, yeah, I guess you're right, actually.
It was definitely.
Yeah, but that was a
I
good
could see
review,
it.
Harv. Thank you very much. I think I don't know if I'll be purchasing those.
Yeah.
They look cozy. They do look cozy. But it sounds like they're popular. I don't see many people wearing them. But
Yeah.
they must be a popular item.
I mean, he wears them well, though.
He does. He's got great feet. Let's get to today's thing in history, and I think you'll know a lot more about this than me.
Heck yeah, it's about time.
This day in history, Robespierre became head of safety in France. So they put him in charge. This is like 1784.
Yeah.
So what do you know about Robespierre?
In the Reign of Terror?
Yes.
Yeah, so I know a lot about this. This starts with a huge liberty movement, which the Americans were a big part of, right? We get our independence. All of our ideas of independence and all of our support for independence came from France. Specifically, in France, you have this Louis XIV, if we set this up in the 1500s, is the greatest ruler that France has ever seen in terms of expanding their power and their wealth. But he also was a spendaholic. He builds Versailles and puts the country enormously in debt. Versailles, they say, like, if every person in the country worked for a year and 100% of their labor went towards one thing, that would have paid for Versailles. Essentially,
I appreciate those workers. I've been to Versailles. It's dope.
It's so awesome. Yeah, so awesome. So then his son takes over. I'm gonna say son, right? Sometimes it was like the grandson but his son takes over and doesn't last very long. Like I think gets like sick and dies. And then Louis XVI takes over. And this is a guy who, if you can imagine, it's more like a president than a king in this case, right? At this point, his people are clamoring for freedoms, and he's giving it to them, right? He's allowing so many concessions, but people are poor because they've been broke by his ancestors. The economy's been broke by them spending too much, and a ton of wars. So Louis XVI comes, he marries Marie Antoinette, this Austrian girl, and they're, again, giving a lot of concessions to this democracy movement. But just as crowds kind of do, it never ends up kind of being enough, right? Mm-hmm. And rather than having a peaceful transition of monarchy like you have in England, you have they storm the Bastille and they take the king and queen hostage and take over the country. And there's all these liberty thinkers that are kind of like torn between this because this is an extreme step in liberty. And one guy named Robespierre kind of takes over as like, no, we have to be aggressive. Like we have to root out all this.
Yeah, he was an attorney.
Uh-huh.
And then I know he worked with the monarchy for a while, but I think at the beginning he wasn't he was for like a revolution, but more of like a constitutional monarchy.
Yeah.
Like something like along the lines of, what you do have like in England where, hey, it works, but like the king only has so much power. But at this point, like you were saying, France was in so much debt. Like there were all these like so much debt. And like, it's funny because you're looking at Americans, you're like, hey, we got help from these French. So like in this period, why can't we help them back? Right?
Well, yeah, Thomas Jefferson, very pro-French dude that wanted to help out. But Washington and Hamilton put up this neutrality of like, hey, we're not going to get involved here.
It is convenient for the U.S.
It was very convenient because when it came to paying back our debt for the Revolutionary War, we're like, well, we made that debt to Louis XVI, and you guys have him in prison. Oh, you just killed him, right? So they kill Louis XVI. His last words: "I die an innocent man" in France. And Marie Antoinette, they kill as well. And she has like the famous phrase when they were protesting. She has the phrase like, let them eat cake, meaning like do whatever you have to do to get them out of here, right? But people took that the wrong way. It was one of those like phrases that people took out of hand. But Robespierre leads this. So they behead them, and then anybody who's kind of like not all into this revolution, which this is typical of every single revolution you ever see, right? When you get like an extremist in charge, if you're against this at all, you're not patriotic, right? You don't love your country, right? Like if you're not for these people running things, Japan did this during World War II, right? Like everybody, it's this crazy movement, and it's purely democracy, right? People assume that democracy is a good thing, but democracy can be
the transition into democracy from monarchy is it's really tough.
Yes, exactly. And this is a group. Robespierre's the head of this public safety group, right? Like the Public Safety Commission that essentially starts ruling this country, and they start just executing everybody that's not
no trials,
exactly.
Nothing.
Right? Like I mean, they're just executing, and they kill 30,000, not just people, but 30,000. Imagine 30,000 leaders and politicians like Elon Musk and all these guys. They're all dead, right?
Yeah.
In a situation like this, and they get taken. One guy actually does something really cool. He's like, hey, I want to see. He's a scientist, right? But he said the wrong things. So I want to see how long I live after my head gets cut off. So he's like, I'm going to keep blinking as long as I'm like coherent.
Yeah.
And he ends up blinking for like after his head gets chopped off, for like another 30 seconds.
Wow.
Right. So
that's wild.
Meaning like he's looking around like.
Jeez. Yeah. Robespierre, he's a cautionary tale, because I don't think he went in it thinking I'm going to like take over and become this like tyrant. But I think eventually that like he kind of like morphs into that, obviously, and they kill all these people, and then eventually he kills so many people, makes so many enemies. They like a big mob surrounds them. He ends up going to like everyone, all his group ends up trying to kill themselves, and he actually shoots himself, but he just goes through his cheek and breaks his jaw. Ooh. And they still capture him. They just bandage his face up, and then
take him to the guillotine.
They take him to the guillotine, but before they dropped and killed it, like chopped his head off, they ripped off the bandage, so he like screamed out in pain, and then they chopped his head off.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you have this young freaking general who's trying to like fight off some of France's enemies that were pissed off at this whole situation, named Napoleon, who eventually just walks up. People don't know this about France, because France will brag so much, because they've done their philosophers have done so much for the liberty movement. But on the flip side, they're in their 5th constitution, meaning they have been a democracy.
You're talking since Robespierre.
Since Robespierre would have been the first, right? They're in their 5th constitution, meaning they've had a democracy and gone back to a monarchy, or like some other form 5 times, right? The 5th one being after World War II, right?
Yeah. But back to like after Robespierre, after they kill off Robespierre, eventually they give it back to the monarchy, right? They give it back to like either Louis. It was back
they tried to establish another Louis in there. It was like a group that came in, but and then they go back to eventually Napoleon, and then back, and then Napoleon's grandson, and then back. Yeah, they're just again. This is.
I don't blame the French for this much, because they're so old at this point. The United States had the benefit of being such a new, young group where they could still make really drastic decisions and make them work. There's so much tradition and so much baggage with France at this point. It's so hard to like get something everybody on the same page, which America was like, hey, this is like such a new country. We can actually get people all on the same page and start from scratch.
Sure. And another thing though that people need to remember is democracy is always painted out as this extremely positive word. And democracy is a positive thing, right? The fact that everyone should have a say in and have consent of the governed, right? But where America, I think, has got it right, particularly is in the Bill of Rights, where you are setting up protections against the smallest minority possible, which is the individual. So if you set up individual freedoms and you protect your government, whether it's a democracy, whether it's a republic, whether it's a monarchy, if you protect the individual's right to exist, and the government's not protecting it, like the Constitution protects the individual from the government, right? When you can protect the individual's right to exist, then you can save yourself from the perils of democracy. That's a big week in politics. Big week.
RFK's in on the Trump bandwagon.
They're forming what they call the team of rivals, which is like a famous book about Lincoln's team.
Yeah.
I
think it's cool.
I don't think Trump sees it as a team of rivals. I think Trump sees it as a Trump
For sure.
Trump power team somehow. But
Yeah.
I think I actually love the fact that I think it's different than last time. And I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, where it felt like last time his administration was ex-CIA, ex-FBI, or career politicians, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's because he'd never really been in politics before. It feels like this go around, which he's aiming for a different approach, which is to bring in people that are a little anti-establishment.
We cover a lot of RFK, but I was listening to an interview and he was talking about how hard of a decision it was to fully endorse Trump, and also for his wife, who's an actress, and in Hollywood, everybody's not voting that way. So she was kind of anti him doing it because she's I think she was a lifelong Democrat, but what's a Democrat now? It's very different than
what she was. Yeah.
So he just talked about it. So I do he's the man.
He is.
He really is the man, and I don't think. So as long as he's on board, I like.
I know. I think for him, it's clearly he wasn't going to win because of our two-party system and kind of the.
But that takes he did to endorse Trump takes a ton of guts, because he probably cut a lot of people out of his life from doing that, and that's just to and I'm beginning to think he's a lifelong politician, but he's 70 years old. I really do believe him when he says he wants to see change.
He's not a lifelong politician. He's
been. I'm saying
he's been around it.
He's been around politics. Yeah. He knows ins and outs of politics better than anybody, for sure.
Yeah, I think if people can take anything from RFK, for me, it's again, this dude's dad is likely one of the greatest Americans that ever lived. RFK, the original, and so take some time to research him.
All right, let's call it there.